I don't think Mama could have taught me that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting you say that because she tried really hard. I know that's what I would think. I would laugh too. I mean, no joke at all. But see, this is a weird thing about some lessons, some life lessons, some of these deeper lessons. You actually they're smaller, almost micro lessons stacked on top of each other over time. When there were people trying to hand me lessons, and I was always like, "You couldn't tell me nothing." They were like, "Don't do this. Get down from there. Stay off of that." I'm like, "What do you know? Like, you can't tell me. Don't tell me to get off this. I'm fine. Yeah. I'm fine. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not hurting myself. Why? You can't tell me." You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what, oh, you can hurt yourself, but I'm not hurting myself. You know?
Yeah.
So as a youngster, you're like, oh, well, I can defend this logic, so it doesn't matter what logic you bring forth as long as I can defend my own logic.
Yeah, where the teacher's sitting there like I get that you have stable footing, but if you crack your head open, I'm going to jail, prison, something. I'm losing my job at least.
It's much easier to address what's outside of ourselves often than it is to address what's inside of us, and sometimes we can be more observant of others, you know.
Yeah.
We can see, and at least with that presented data, I can work with that. So like that's like, oftentimes when we feel like our personal feelings are validated or like justified, and we'll be like, oh well, you know, like, well I came like okay, so like last night you said that you were going to do the dishes.
Yeah.
And I came home today and the dishes are not done.
Right.
So, like, at that point in time, you're like, okay, so you know, I feel justified in feeling frustrated.
Mm-hmm. And maybe even assume malice in the other person.
Sure, like how dare they not do the dishes when they said they would? Or, like, oh, man, did they just, like, forget the dishes again?
Like, they just, like, looked at the dishes and they were like, fuck Barrett. And they just kick it. It's like, walk away.
Yeah, I know I said I was going to do these dishes, but actually... fuck that motherfucker. And fuck his dishes, dog. Whereas, like, other folks I know personally, you know, like, all the kid has to do is yell or scream, and they learn that if they do that long enough, they will get what they want. And achieving that, getting what they want, then teaches them the lesson of, hey, all I gotta do is scream and yell, and I get what I want.
Because the structure of a lesson isn't necessarily like this. There's this truth about the universe that, like, oh, congratulations, join the club. You have discovered the truth of the universe. No, I'm sorry. The lesson is really only yours, and you can kind of foster it in other people.
Yeah,
if it's one of those.
Sure. Or and the other thing too is if nobody can, if you are not self-aware enough to confront yourself about these behaviors, and nobody around you confronts you about these maybe some of these bad behaviors, you know, then they can become ingrained, and we don't understand that what we're doing is hurting or offending or being, or if you're 15 years old and you're in, you know, and you're in Target, you know, and I want these Legos, and mom's like, no Legos, and all you gotta do is throw a fit, and you know you'll get some Legos, but you're 15 in Walmart, laying on the ground, yelling and throwing a tantrum, and nobody says anything or does anything. That's gonna continue.
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna stop that if that person walks out of that store with some Legos in his pocket.
Man.
See? Yeah, right. So then, like, there's a really great colloquialism. I'm gonna slide it in here, which is like, never assume malice when ignorance will do.
Oh,
so it's much easier
I love that one.
And I know for a lot of us, it's very easy to be like, oh, you know, like, oh, that guy who cut me off in traffic, surely he knew he cut me off in traffic.
Right.
What a dick.
He looked at me, he said, fuck that guy.
He may have been cruising up, and you may have been in his blind spot in his vehicle, and he may not even have seen you there, and cruised over in front of you, and then he's in his car like, oh my gosh, I'm such a dick, I didn't even mean to cut that guy off, that was a total accident. My bad. And I, you know, like,
I usually go, haha, oh, whoops, and then, like, raise my hand.
Yeah, totally. But, you know, and it's really hard to, like, you know, in the moment to assume, oh, man, maybe this guy just didn't see me.
Right.
And then just instantly forgive him. And, hey, you know what? Now you're just a whole bunch less frustrated every day if you just assume that instead of someone has done this to me, think, oh, maybe this person just doesn't know what they did.
Yeah.
Because it's much easier to think of all the times that you yourself has messed up on accident and been like, oh, I didn't even mean that to come out like that. I didn't even mean that to be like that.
Yeah.
But this person interpreted it like this whole way that now they're super mad at me. You know? So oftentimes it's easier, or oftentimes it's better to assume ignorance instead of malice.
Absolutely.
So
often.
So you know, like you roll in and you see like, oh, you know, dishes, whatever, they're left undone, and even though this so and so has said they were going to do the dishes, and you're like, oh man, the dishes aren't done. So you know, at this point in time, you have one of two choices. Your choice A is to assume malice. You're like, oh man, you know what a jerk, didn't do the dishes like they said they do, and then you just justify that, hey man, they said they do the dishes and the dishes aren't done.
Yeah.
So now you're going to use that as a justification to then have the feeling where you then graduate from I'm feeling frustrated that the dishes aren't done, to then that graduates to now I'm angry that the dishes aren't done.
Yeah.
Right? So then you have the connection between because anger is a secondary emotion, you know?
Right.
So you don't just go from nothing, from going from normal feeling to being angry.